Welcome to another edition of ATL Prime Sports. I'm JJ Jurjevich. Joining me this evening is the one, the only TC Todd Corder, and of course our fabulous producer Wayne Ridenauer in beautiful Memphis, Tennessee. You can find us all on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at ATL Prime Sports. You can search Apple and Spotify ATL Prime Sports as well. Personal Twitters at JJ Get You One for myself, at RWY Jr. for Wayne, and at Corder Todd for TC Todd Corder. Wayne, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Well, I'm doing a lot better than Lewis Hamilton. They took a month off in August for the Formula One, and when they came back, first lap, he did not complete because he ran into Fernando Alonso and pumped his car right up in the air, and he was out of the race.
That's a tough break. I'm doing pretty good, but not as good as Jesse Chavez, and let me tell you why. With the Cubs this year, a 6.35 ERA. With the Angels this year, a 7.59 ERA. With the Braves, 2.11. Hopefully the Braves get the best of Jesse Chavez again as they go into the pennant race. Todd, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, guys. I tell you what, I found the Atlanta Falcons running back. He's Blooper, the Braves mascot. He was stiff-arming kids at half Jaguars game. He stiff-armed about 5 of them to the end zone. And I'm like, you know what? Let's sign him. He'll be the third two-sport athlete to be employed by the Braves and the Falcons. And it'll be the third one. And the other two are Deion Sanders and Brian Jordan. All right, Falcons, you're playing the Saints this Sunday. Sign Blooper, the Braves mascot, now.
Well, we got a great show on tap this evening. We welcome 2 guests from the Rebel Walk, Evie Van Pelt, the publisher herself, and the quarterback himself, David Walker. Todd, why don't you tee us off, buddy?
All right, let's do it. David and Evie, you know what? One of you all can answer this question, or each one of you can answer it. But we're doing the SEC preview, but since you guys cover Ole Miss, I thought we would start with them first. And, when we talk about Ole Miss, they're coming off a 10-win season. They lost to Baylor in the Sugar Bowl. They lose Matt Corral to the NFL. They lose their top 3 running backs, their top 3 wide receivers, 8 of the top 12 tacklers on defense. They lose all SEC rushers, Sam Williams. Each coordinator, Charlie Weiss, comes in. That makes me feel old. And now they use the transfer portal, does Lane Kiffin, to get quarterback Jackson Dart out of USC, running back Zach Evans from TCU. Tell me, and they also get a kicker from a frat party. So a lot of changes at Ole Miss. Win games, or is that bar too high? Each one of you can answer that. Go ahead.
No, I don't think so. And it's funny, though, when you mention all those things that Ole Miss lost, if you're an Ole Miss fan, you might think, uh-oh, wait a minute. However, if you're an Ole Miss fan, you probably know that Lane Kiffin killed it in the transfer portal. So, and pretty much every one of those guys has been just dynamite so far in, spring camp and fall camp. So I think, to answer your question specifically, I think the schedule sets up so well for Ole Miss this year. Listen to their first 6 games: Troy, Central Arkansas, Georgia Tech, Tulsa, Kentucky, then Vandy. And, I mean, I don't know. I think that there are a lot of people that think that Ole Miss could, and then Auburn, that think Ole Miss could be 7-0 going into their game at LSU. So I think they've got a very favorable schedule. I think as long as you have Lane Kiffin as your head coach, I don't think you have to worry about your offensive play calling regardless. I mean, Juice, the dog, could be could be your offensive coordinator. No offense to Charlie Weiss Jr. I think he's phenomenal. But, let's call it like it is. Lane Kiffin is a genius play caller. So I think they've got the talent and the coaching and a favorable schedule.
Now, David, you can either rebut that or you can agree with her and tell us why.
I'll tell you what, when you look at those first 6 or 7 games, I think you're looking at a team that could be ranked, depending on how everybody else does, of course. A top 5 team. By the time they hit that LSU game on down the line, and as Evie said, Lane is as good as it gets. He hit the tarmac running this time. I guarantee you that, because he's just bringing in all kinds of talent. He's got a tremendous scouting team working for him over there, and of course, they're bringing in top quality freshmen as well. And again, depending on the quarterbacks, and I think a lot of people think the same. The quarterbacks have had a great spring. They've had a great preseason. And Lane, as of yesterday, hadn't named one, and he said it really hasn't come up. So I'm thinking they're both about equal. But, they've won 10 of their last 11 home games. And I think that's something that Lane is really proud of. And, you look at A&M, and this is the 23rd season of this century. And A&M at home against Power 5 teams is barely scratching 500. So to go 10-1, to win 10 of your last 11 at home, then have the schedule set up as it is, they're going to add to that quite a bit. So, the 22-point favorites against Troy this week. Of course, opening weeks, you don't know what's going to happen. A Navy can come in and beat Michigan, and Appalachian State or somebody. It just anything can happen. But really looking forward to the start of the season.
I think, sorry.
Go ahead, Evie. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, if you look at the players that he brought in, like on the offensive side of the ball, you've got, a lot of them are going to be starters. We don't know what's going to happen with the quarterback situation yet, for sure, but there's no doubt Jackson Dart's a talented quarterback. You've got Zach Evans, Ulysses Bentley, running backs, Jalen Robinson, a transfer wide receiver from UCF, Michael Trigg, tight end from USC. So, all those guys are expected to play integral parts of the offense, and every one of those guys was a transfer in this last class.
You're listening to David Walker and Evie Van Pelt, both from the Rebel Walk right here on ATL Prime Sports. You mentioned a lot of those transfers, Rashard Evans, Jackson Dart from USC, a lot of former USC transfers, former quarterbacks in the transfer portal, JT Daniels, Slovis up there in Pittsburgh. We'll mention that later. But Jackson Dart, Luke Altmaier, I know there's not been a lot of word from Lane Kiffin. Which one do you think will get the nod week 1 versus Troy?
David, you want to take that one?
I sure don't. Go ahead, Evie.
You know what? Evie kind of answered that earlier. She's like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's really funny. A lot of people think Lane Kiffin is just giving us coach speak when he comes out and says, "Oh, I don't know, I haven't picked." Lane Kiffin, let me tell people, Lane Kiffin doesn't do coach speak. Lane Kiffin is not one of those coaches who has a problem telling you either, "I don't know," or "I'm not going to tell you." So when Lane says, they one day one of them looks like he's ahead, and the next day the other one looks like he's ahead, he's literally telling you the truth. Does he have an inkling? I don't know. I think the consensus around the Ole Miss media is that when he says, I don't know yet, take him at his word.
Yeah, Evie and Dave, I just wanted to say that I've looked at the Ole Miss schedule, and in my opinion, I think the first big test is going to come up versus Tulsa in September 24th.
And you've mentioned that before, and that's a possibility. Tulsa is one of those teams, a hurricane. That's one of those teams that surprises you a little bit. Of course, they're playing in American Athletic Conference, and they're always tough. You never know what they're going to put on the field. But, that's going to be one that – and hell, Lane's going to look at all of them. He's going to take them all very seriously. There's not anybody on that schedule that, he's not going to be sending his team out 100% to play. And he was even upset about this last mock game, this last Saturday, their last scrimmage. He was upset about that with some of the effort that was going on. So,
yeah, he would. David's right.
You
they'll
know,
find out what
guys.
Lane Kiffin's all about. If they take one lazy step on that field, they'll be off the field.
That's true. You know, guys, you're listening to Evie Van Pelt and David Walker here on ATL Prime Sports. We have Dave Cohen of the voice of the Georgia State Panthers coming up in about 15 minutes approximately or less, and then we'll do our pick six. I kind of forgot to do that earlier in the show, so I'll do it now since we have a bevy of folks here on the show today, 5 of us. It feels like a group therapy session, and we all just need college football so bad, or we're just going to go back crazy. So speaking of the craziness, the SEC West, to me, is the best conference in college. I mean, well, it is a conference. It's a conference in itself, but the SEC is the best conference, with the Western Division is the best division in all of football. Honestly, guys, JJ disagrees with me. You may disagree with me. I'm going to tell you right now, I think David does too. I'll say it again. Nobody, and that includes almighty Alabama, nobody is going undefeated in the SEC West. We are going to have everybody, shake your head all you want, we're going to have everybody with one loss. The division is too tough. Each one of you give me who wins the West, who wins the East, and then we'll break out nationally.
Yeah, you know, I think that you absolutely could be right. I just think that the Western Division is, you know, we just cannibalize ourselves so frequently over there. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I think, you know, I know Ole Miss gets Alabama at home in Oxford, so that's going to be fun. I honestly, I mean, I don't know. I think that I would pick, if I had to pick, I would probably go with the safe pick of Alabama winning the West. And honestly, I think Kentucky's going to surprise some people. I'm going to pick Kentucky in the East.
Oh, Dave, go ahead. David, go ahead. And JJ's eyebrows are going through the screen.
Yeah, I mean, probably everybody's is. I know somebody from ESPN picked Kentucky to have an 11-1 season, and saw that was tweeted on Twitter the other day. And you look at how everything is going to develop. I mean, they do have a really good quarterback there, Will Levis. In fact, I'm thinking that the SEC's got 5 or 6, maybe 7 who can really play, and that's not even counting Haynes King at A&M, who, you know, we didn't get to see a whole lot of last year, and he wasn't that impressive. But coming out of high school, he's supposed to be, you know, I remember Jimbo saying last year that King and Calzada both could play in the NFL, and we found out, well, one of those wasn't true. But, you know, Haynes King at A&M could be pretty good. You got Alabama and Georgia, I think the top 2. I think A&M is probably pretty close up there because of all the talent that they have on the field, quarterback notwithstanding. Arkansas, Kentucky, and Ole Miss are probably right there in the second tier, but very, very close. And, you know, all of them have quarterbacks. We just have to wait to see who Ole Miss is. But that's who I'm liking. And I think Evie's got a point with Kentucky. I think they're going to give Georgia all they want. I love Stetson Bennett. I think he's like probably the second best quarterback in the conference behind Bryce Young. Rattler's moved in at South Carolina. KJ Jefferson is outstanding. Hendon Hooker at Tennessee can play. So it's really well set up really well for the quarterbacks. And going to be a lot of excitement for the SEC fans.
Evie, Dave, got a question about Auburn, one of Ole Miss's biggest rivals. Had a lot of off-season head coaching drama with a false report. Their schedule's tough. They play Georgia, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and Alabama all on the road. Where do you see Auburn finishing in the SEC West? A lot of people are picking them near the bottom of the barrel. I think Harsin bounces back, has a decent year. What say you guys? Evie will go first.
Okay. I think, to be honest, I think Auburn is going to go as their quarterback goes. And so I know they've named TJ Finley, the quarterback, a transfer from LSU, over Zach Calzada from A&M, which, to be honest, Zach Calzada stepped in and gave it all he could last year, but I don't feel like he was he just didn't have a very good season. And so to me, I felt like if they named Calzada as their quarterback, I felt like they were going to have some issues. So Auburn has been dysfunctional. I know their AD is now resigned, but
Right.
I kind of agree with you. I think if they still are Auburn, they still have a lot of talented kids. And I think if TJ Finley performs well, then, who knows? Auburn could definitely throw a monkey wrench into the SEC West.
Hey, David. You know what? Let's shift from Auburn. Let's go to the SEC West and LSU. Everybody's calling it the odd couple, Brian Kelly and LSU, or as Brian Kelly would say, Brian Kelly and LSU, with his Southern accent. So we'll see how it works out. But you know what? They are really talented and really deep. I feel, David, they're going to beat somebody and they're going to upset somebody. And I smell that they could upset A&M. I could even go far as picking them second in the West to be that good. Or, A&M this, A&M that. But Jimbo Fisher has really, other than last year, he's really struggled. So, I mean,
he struggled last year too. He just
right. Right, he struggled with 4
Bama.
losses. He did get over the hump and beat Bama, but something tells me LSU could finish second in the Wild Wild West. David, your thoughts? Since Evie answered the last one.
You're right about A&M because they were 8-4 last year, and they skipped out on a bowl game, for COVID reasons. Apparently, the same reason they skipped out on playing Ole Miss back in 2020.
I knew that was coming.
When they found themselves in the top 5, and all of a sudden they don't want to play anybody who was any good anymore. So, that's just part of it. But A&M, they won 8 games last year, including Alabama. But the 4 games they lost, they were favored in every single one of them. And if you're going to have a great program and be a great coach and do all those wonderful things that people tell you, then you gotta win the games that you're favored in, because it's hard to be favored in the SEC. Whether you're at home or not, as I've already mentioned, A&M is not the place to win at home. I mean, that's not. I think the visiting teams love that A&M atmosphere as much as the Aggies do. LSU, they got a chance. I mean, they had a quarterback lead to go to A&M, and now he's sitting the bench at A&M behind Haynes King, and then they had a transfer come in from Arizona State. He's fighting for the job with the redshirt freshman. So, as soon as they get that battle set, LSU is always going to recruit. They're always going to have top players. They're always going to have great coaching staffs. And me, for one, I'm going to miss Ed Orgeron because I know Ed. Went visiting when he was coaching at Miami. He was just defensive tackle coach there. Spent a spring with him. He was my host, and just really enjoyed that time with him. And so being from Louisiana, being a Saints guy, grew up with the LSU Tigers and Burt Jones and Charlie McClendon and all those guys. There's always going to be a soft spot there. And we're just going to have to see how good Brian Kelly is. He couldn't get the job done at Notre Dame, but the last 3 coaches who've been at LSU have all won national championships. So the pressure's on, that's for sure.
You know what, guys, I really appreciate it. We were going to ask you your Final Four and all that, but we're out of time. Dave Cohen will be coming on in about a minute and a half or so. We'll bring you back on and give you some national picks, or you can put it out in the Twitter feed or however, and we'll put it on there. Guys, like I said, really appreciate you coming on. Believe me, I wish we had more time. I will say this to let you go. Vanderbilt right now is 1-0, and they won 63-10. So maybe that's the because their coach said, Lee Clark said, we're going to be one of the premier coaches in the country coming up. And I'll leave it at that. Right. Guys, thanks so much for coming on. Yeah, go ahead.
We haven't seen you for a year. You remember, about a year ago, we were sitting in Mercedes Stadium watching Ole Miss play Louisville. Wasn't that fun?
That was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun for Ole Miss because Louisville stunk that day. They got whipped up and down the field, and that Ole Miss and Matt Corral and that offense was superb. Yeah. And you know what? They had most of the people there too, and there were a lot of empty seats because Louisville hardly brought anybody with them. So,
well, maybe we'll see you in Atlanta for the Georgia Tech game.
I will not. I will not be in town, but maybe JJ and Wayne will come. But you know, you guys, they're Falcons fans, and I know you're Saints fans, so please don't fight the stands at Georgia Tech. Okay.
Thanks. We won't. Thank you so much.
You know what?
I just hope Atlanta has a better record than Houston Texans this year. That's what I'm hoping to get off of that good of a season.
If not, one of you guys, we can get bloopers our running back, and you just never know. So.
Good luck this weekend, guys.
Thanks so much for coming on. Sorry, JJ, what?
Yeah, before we let y'all go, David, I still have a grudge against Vandy for not playing Georgia in the COVID year as well. And go ahead and tell our listeners how you guys can, how our listeners can follow you guys on social media.
Thanks, JJ. I forgot about that.
Go ahead, Evie.
You can follow us at The Rebel Walk. You can follow me at Ole Miss Evie. And you can follow David at David Walker QB. And we'd love it, and we'll follow back.
And I'll tell you when you're good. That's what Dave will tell you right on Twitter. I'll tell you it's a good team, and I'll tell you if you're a good quarterback or not.
That's right. Thanks, y'all. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you so much. All right. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
You know what? That was a lot of fun. That was a jumbled mess. I messed up introducing them. I messed up saying what was coming on in the show. JJ threw me for a loop. I thought you were going to do that. And speaking of coming up, Dave Cohen here is going to be joining us momentarily, the voice of the Georgia State Panthers. Then we'll do our pick six, and then we'll give our Final Four and a national champion. And I kind of hinted some things were going to be wild in the wild, wild west. And we're talking Georgia State and Sun Belt here momentarily as Dave is getting ready to pop on the air right now. And there he is. There's the guy, Dave Cohen. Happy 40th, 40 years of the voice of Georgia State. Congratulations, my friend, and welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I wish it was 40 years as far as age instead of a number of years broadcasting. I'd be 20 years younger. I'd be feeling a whole lot better, wouldn't I?
Oh, hey, we're all above 40 here except for the clueless guy in the right top of your screen wearing the big G on the top of his box head from the hat. But yeah, we're all over. I'm over 50, and I'm not saying you are, Dave, but I know Wayne is for sure.
Oh, I'm over 50. Let me tell you.
Yep, I've trucked past the double nickel myself. So, yeah. So now that we've revealed all our ages except for JJ's, let's get to what we want to talk about here, and that's Georgia State football. The Panthers are playing South Carolina this week. They won 7 of the last 8 last season. Obviously, Darren Granger was a big reason why, and he came in mid-October and turned everything around. Dave, they returned 8 on offense, 7 on defense. They've got 2 of the best running backs in the conference, but they gave up, almost 27 points a game on the defensive side of the ball. So that tells me if Georgia State wants to take the next big step, they got it. They got to improve defensively.
Well, and that's the thing about it is we've got a lot of familiar faces back on defense. And when you look back at the numbers from a year ago, and I've got them right here, they put up some impressive numbers, some of the best numbers we've seen in the history of Georgia State football. 38 sacks, 92 tackles for loss, 21 forced turnovers. I will say the points per game allowed a little skewed based on the loss to Army and the loss at North Carolina a year ago early in the season, really before we got our footing underneath us for the stretch run where they won 7 of their last 8 ball games, as you mentioned. But, I have the utmost confidence in our defense and their ability to play to a level where they can be a difference maker on the field. We saw it again, time and again down the stretch a year ago when things finally settled, when the dust finally settled from some disappointing losses early in the season. Now, let me say this too. We're in a very similar situation that we were in last year, where we had, in the first 5 weeks, we had to go to North Carolina, we had to go to Auburn. And I remember talking to you guys last year, we should have beaten Auburn. It was a woulda, coulda, shoulda. Similar situation this year. We open at South Carolina Saturday night, as you mentioned. And then by the time we get on the bus and head back to Atlanta in 7 days, we've got the Tar Heels of North Carolina coming to Center Park Stadium. And then after a game with Charlotte, we've got Coastal Carolina, one of the favorites in the Sun Belt East. And shortly after that, we have Appalachian State, and we got to go to Army. So deja vu all over again, said a once famous baseball player. And, you know, the task again, schedule-wise, is daunting. I've said it's maybe the most challenging schedule Georgia State has played, with maybe its most experienced roster in what will be now 13 seasons of Georgia State football when we kick off Saturday night in Columbia.
You're listening to Dave Cohen right here on ATL Prime Sports. You can find Dave on Twitter at GA State Voice. Dave, I want to talk about some history that could be made this year. Senior running back Tucker Gregg has a shot at Georgia State football history. With the 600-yard season, he would become the all-time leading rusher at GSU. What are your thoughts on him and Williams combining for what I feel like is the best running back tandem in the Sun Belt Conference? You mentioned it a little earlier. Go in depth.
Yeah, you know, I'm not sure if you guys were able to listen in to the Sun Belt Conference Media Day radio show that I did from New Orleans back in late January. And I did an hour show, and, you know, Coach Elliott, Sean Elliott, was my guest for about the first 20, 25 minutes. And then we had couple of our team captains on and the commissioner of the league. But when I was talking to Coach Elliott, I said, you know, you got some really good stories on this team. Whether they go 12-0, God forbid 0-12, we know that's not going to happen. There's some good stories in this team. And on the offensive side of the football, aside from the fact that Darren Granger transferred after playing his first game at Center Park Stadium as a member of the Furman Paladins and almost leading Furman to a win over Georgia State on that Saturday following Georgia State's win at Tennessee, two other good stories are guys that he hands the football off to, JJ. You mentioned them, Tucker Gregg and Jamaius Williams. And it just so happens these are the two guys, at least last year, on every plane trip. I've got Jamaius to my left and Tucker to my right. So had a good chance to talk football and other things with our two running backs. And what makes Tucker Gregg such a good story is here's a kid from Chatsworth, Georgia, who was not recruited by Georgia State necessarily. He made Georgia State aware of himself by sending film. Not a heavily recruited, at least Division I student athlete out of the gate from Chatsworth to begin with. He comes to Georgia State. I don't know where he was in the depth chart, 5th, 6th, 7th. I don't know that much attention was paid to his potential back in the day. But boy, he's certainly, with that stick-to-itiveness and taking full advantage of what Georgia State offered him from a strength and conditioning standpoint and the ability on special teams and then to come in and block, is a great story because he's vaulted himself now to one of the best running backs, as you mentioned, in the Sun Belt Conference, and a Doak Walker Award candidate, as is Jamaius Williams. Jamaius comes to Georgia State from South Carolina. There's only 3 or 4 guys that are on our roster that know what it's like to run out in the field on a Saturday night at Williams-Brice Stadium in what will be the opener. Jamaius Williams is one of them. Came out of Grayson High School, which is a great high school football program, as you guys know, here in the metro Atlanta area. Goes to South Carolina, has a pretty good freshman season as a defensive back. For whatever reason, I think it was more the numbers game, he ends up transferring back to Atlanta to Georgia State. But he transfers as a DB because that's what he was playing. Somewhere along the line, I don't know in what meeting, but somebody, I'm sure Coach Elliott and, you know, some of the assistants said, hey, why don't we try him out running the football? So Next thing you know, he's getting reps in practice carrying the ball. I'm looking down. Who's 21 on offense that's carrying the football? It's Jamaius. Well, suffice to say, the two of them combined for just over 1,800 yards and 18 touchdowns last year. And on the offensive side, along with our third leading rusher, Darren Granger, our quarterback, those three tore up the Sun Belt Conference and tore up Ball State in the Camellia Bowl in Montgomery on Christmas Day.
They did.
My point is, you got a guy who really was on nobody's radar when it came to recruiting in Tucker, and a guy who is a defensive back. And all of a sudden, the two of them are two of the best running backs in the Sun Belt. Really, really good stories. And, I'm so happy, that, they're back for another year in carrying the football. I will add that along with what you'll see from Darren Granger, I know they're going to try to work Marcus Carroll into the rotation a little bit more. He's been here now 2 years out of Union City, Georgia, and has been getting some quality reps with the twos in practice. So I don't know how much he'll play. Of course, games dictate sometimes, substitutions, but as the season progresses, I'm fully expecting that we'll see 23 Marcus Carroll on the field carrying the football along with Greg and Williams.
Two-part question, Dave. What does Georgia State have to do to beat South Carolina? And you can answer that one second. I guess this one first. Where does Georgia State need to improve the most defensively? Because that's probably where they're going to need to improve in order to beat South Carolina, because offensively, they're going to move the ball. That gives them a chance Saturday.
Yeah, I don't know that it concerns me yet, but it's certainly something to think about when it comes to matchups. Number one, can we get pressure and can we crack the offensive line of South Carolina? Again, and JJ and guys, we've talked about this. Anytime a group of five goes up against a power five, especially in the SEC, size, speed, skill. You look at those, and I was working on my South Carolina sheets today. I forget 2 or 3 guys along the offensive line, 300 plus pounds. Sometimes the group of 5 guys can hang for a half, maybe part of the third quarter, but after a while they get worn down. Now, that didn't happen in Knoxville back in 2019.
That's right.
To be honest, it did not really happen at Auburn last year.
Did not.
So I'm hoping that if we can get some pressure on Spencer Rattler, the transfer from Oklahoma that everybody in Columbia and the Gamecock fans are excited about, that could go a long way. Otherwise, he's easily going to test our corners and our safeties, who are very well experienced. Quavian White at one of the corners, Bryquise Brown at the other corner. Our all-time leader in interceptions, the hit stick, Antavius Lane at one of the safeties. Yeah. Jalen Tate at one of the safeties. We've got experience, but, with Spencer Rattler, and I know, he didn't win it last year, but that's the guy they were talking Heisman Trophy about last year and a year and a half ago. So, until otherwise, and if you look at his numbers, and I've got them right here in front of me, how about these numbers in 3 years at Oklahoma? Played in 23 games over 3 seasons under Lincoln Riley, of course, now out in California.
Right.
As a starter, was 15-2, 70% pass completion rate, threw for over 4,500 yards, 40 touchdowns, and was only intercepted 12 times. So we're talking about a guy who's a pretty good quarterback. Again, they don't throw your name around as a potential Heisman candidate unless there's some substance there to make the college football experts, we're talking writers and broadcasters, do that. So my point is, to me, the biggest threat or the biggest key is, can we disrupt enough that offensive line and that quarterback so that our corners and safeties are not on their toes or on their back heels the entire night against what we know are some SEC caliber receivers.
And not to mention, Spencer Rattler's the number 1 quarterback in the nation coming out his senior year. So he's got the 5 stars behind him. You mentioned it. Georgia State defense relied on a lot of turnovers last year, and that's what lost Rattler the job last year at Oklahoma, so that might be a key in Saturday's matchup. Wayne, any comments, questions for Dave?
Well, Georgia State has to go up against the team that I have picked to win the SEC East. And we're going to be making some picks later on in the show. And I'm actually, because of how many points they're giving South Carolina, I'm going to end up betting on Georgia and taking the points. But I think South Carolina is going to win the game, but they won't win by more than 12.
Well, that's wonderful. I'm glad you gave that portion away of the show. I really appreciate that. Dave, this is let's talk about, we've talked about the contest. Let's talk about you. Let's do it. 40 years. I mean, what are your thoughts? And when you went and got your award, what were you thinking? Wow, time flies. Can I do this another 40 years? Yada, yada.
Well, it wasn't like a trophy. And actually, it caught me off guard a little bit because, other than the COVID years, every year we host the annual Georgia State football kickoff luncheon. And I get up there and welcome everybody. I don't really have a whole lot to say. I welcome everybody. I take everybody to lunch. I bring everybody back from lunch. I'm kind of like the air traffic controller. I introduce head coach Sean Elliott, and knowing Coach Elliott as I do, he does a great job at events like that, introducing his staff and having them each, introduce each other. So we get to the end of the program, and my part of the program, along with introducing, is we do have a panel. So this year it was myself, and then with Coach Elliott, and then with our offensive coordinator, Trent McKnight, and our defensive coordinator, Nate Fuqua. And that runs about 20 minutes or so. And so I start to wrap it up because, I said, we've got the head football coach and each of the coordinators here. And this is a room of about 250 Georgia State fans, Georgia State people. And only one guy asks a question. I'm thinking to myself,
should have brought us.
You got the head football coach right here. We open up at South Carolina, and you have North Carolina here. We're coming off the best season in the history of Georgia State football. Nobody in this room has any questions above and beyond what I just got done asking them.
You should have invited us. We would have grilled them.
One guy asked a question about the Army game. And then that was it. So I say, okay, well, nobody has any questions. Coach, appreciate it. We'll see you at Columbia on Saturday night, September 3rd. Thanks to our coordinators. And, thanks for everybody being here. Thanks for your support. Hope you enjoyed the salmon or the chicken and drive safely. Well, I had asked previously our athletic director, Charlie Cobb, if he wanted to get up at the very beginning and say something, if I introduced him. And he said no. Well, out of the corner of my eye, towards the end, I can see him get up. And he goes behind me, and he picks up a Georgia State football helmet. And he takes the mic from me, literally. And that's when he presented the helmet to me. And they put number 40 on the helmet. And that's what they presented, 40 on the helmet, which is actually.
Where is it? You have it?
Yeah, it's in the other room. I don't have it right here.
Oh, man, I was hoping you would show it now.
Well, I could run and get it, but I can
run and get it.
Get it. I can edit in a picture of him holding the helm with his wife there and everything.
You gave it away. I wanted to run and get it, but that's all right.
So it did kind of catch me off.
Yeah, hurry up.
It caught me off guard a little bit, but it was a pleasant surprise. And as I've said before, I never thought I'd be at Georgia State for 40 years. Who thinks they're going to be somewhere for 40 years? But because in the early days I was there and I started as a student and then I graduated and I was working radio full time in Atlanta, WGST and WCNN and a couple of other stations. And but throughout all of that, I've always been on the radio calling Georgia State basketball, Georgia State baseball. After 12 years of Furman football back in the day when Georgia State did not have football, I started with our football program in 2010. But, I met my wife at Georgia State. Both of our kids went through the daycare program at Georgia State. Next thing you know, 15 years turns into 20. 20 turns into 25.
Right.
And all of a sudden somebody says, boy, you've been here 30 years? It's like, really? 30 years. And then, life happens and you decide to stay somewhere, and all of a sudden we're heading into our 40th season. You know, I've grown with the program. The difference, and I've said this too, that it's not really just a job, because I'm a Georgia State alum. You know, I've been down there since the fall or the spring of 1982. And we kid around, my wife and I, that, you know, we're either on our way to Georgia State in the car, or we're at Georgia State all day, or we're in the car coming home from Georgia State. So we're really only one of 4 places at any given time of the day. We're at home. We're in the car. We're in the car going to Georgia State. We're at Georgia State all day during the workday, or we're in the car leaving Atlanta, heading back.
You don't need those trackers on your phone. They already know when the hell you are. I mean,
Pretty
they
much.
don't need it.
Pretty much.
I mean,
there's only a few places people are going to find me.
You know what? That's awesome. We know where we can
great.
find you on Saturday, and that's at Bryce Williams Stadium in South Carolina against the Gamecocks. And you know what? Best of luck to you in Georgia State, David. Dave, tell us how everybody can listen, and we'll let you go.
Well, our flagship is the same. It's the 50,000 watt FM, 88.5 FM in Atlanta. You can also listen via their TuneIn Radio app. You can listen via the GSU Athletics mobile app. If you're up in the Hall County, Gainesville area, we have an affiliate up there at 97.5 FM. And then I added lowcountryradio.com. It's an online radio station that is out of Savannah. So plenty of ways to listen to us. The game is not nationally televised on cable. It's SEC Network and it's ESPN Plus. Nothing wrong with either of those 2 outlets, but if you want to watch it, you're going to have to know where to go and be a subscriber to, you know, either of those in order to see it. If not, then they'll be with me on the radio.
Well, go ahead, Wayne.
I'm going to say I'll be watching on the replay on the ESPN Plus, because Memphis has a game that night playing Ole Miss, or not Ole Miss, Mississippi State. So I'm going to have to watch the replay.
You can see he's got his priorities all in order. You know what? ESPN is played great. JJ and I are going to be doing some games on ESPN Plus this fall. I have 5 of them for the SIAC. And on Friday night, I'll be at River Ridge High School as Sprayberry comes to make a visit, and I'll do that game on Max Preps. So I can't wait. We'll all be on the air. We'll have some fun. And I'll tell you what, based on what I saw against North Carolina when they played, Florida A&M, Georgia State's got a shot in that game. So we'll see.
I was shocked Florida A&M they were down 20 guys on that roster. If you saw those news reports, they scored 24 points.
7 offensive linemen is all they had. So yeah. Georgia State's got to be licking their chops, but you got to get this one before the next one. Good luck on Saturday. And thanks for coming in, as always.
And Dave, I want to say congratulations on 40 years, and thanks for being a friend of the show.
Right. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. You guys do a really, really good job, and it's you too, Wayne, because I know you're flying this plane. Well, but
he is flying. He's flying it, and some days I think it's going to crash because JJ and I are going to let it crash. So
it won't crash. Everything's fine.
You two get back to coach and hand out sodas and peanuts. Let Wayne do the flying here.
That's right. We literally and figuratively will. Dave, thanks so much for coming on, as always.
All right. Yep. Always appreciate it. If we do this again next week, hopefully
we will.
Hopefully we're talking about a Georgia State win and a great bus ride back I-20 back to Atlanta.
We are going to talk to you next week, and thanks for coming on as always.
All right, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep. Take care.
All righty.
Dave Cohen, the voice of the Georgia State Panthers, here on ATL Prime Sports, and my stomach is there's been a lot of jokes on the show today, so it's been pretty good. Thanks to Blooper and everybody else. I really enjoyed it. You know what? Let's talk about each guest here, and then we'll go to our pick six. We'll wrap it up real quick. Interesting. Evie thought Kentucky was going to win the East. I thought all my hair was going to fall out of my head on that one. And then David mentioned it as a possibility, but he knows darn well that Georgia's the big favorite. And then you mentioned, Wayne, that South Carolina was going to win the East, and I thought our guest was going to hang up the phone. That's it. See you guys later. I'm all done. Here I'm doing Georgia State, and this guy's doing his pick six, picking South Carolina to win the East. And I tell you what,
I'm trying to win. I'm trying to win the pick six this year. That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, but you got to wait till a pick six. I mean, that's hysterical. I think our guest was going to go boing. And then I said, go ahead and go get it. And then he goes, nah, go it in. I'm like, oh, man, you're giving it away. Isn't that funny, though? That's hysterical.
I will comment. I think Evie has a great point with Kentucky. Unfortunately, they are dealt a blow with their starting All-American running back, Chris Rodriguez, looking like he may be suspended for a couple games because of some off-the-field incidents, one happening a DUI back in, I believe, May. And supposedly there's an unresolved issue going on right now that I can't find out what it is, so that'll be tough to win that Week 2 game against Florida without Chris Rodriguez. But I do like the pick. Kentucky is in the top 25. There's a lot of hype going into the season. The Wildcats aren't just a basketball school anymore.
Yes, they are. They are a basketball school. There, I said it. I said it.
But
this conversation when you weren't around.
Dave, and we talk about our second guest, Dave. In 40 years, I mean, hats off to him. What a great friend of the show, and all he's done for that university.
And all he's done for our show.
And all he's done for our show. I was going to say the same thing. And folks, go give him a listen. He calls the game wonderfully. It's very fun to listen to. He's a great communicator of the game of football. Which is just all three of our guests tonight bringing hot fire. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was so funny. You weren't on one week, JJ. It was just me and Wayne, and we mentioned they had the feud between Calipari and Stoops over there. And Calipari's right. Kentucky's still a basketball school. They may finish second in the East, but that's as high as they're going because Georgia's going to win the East. There's just too much talent, too much depth. Kentucky doesn't have the depth of Georgia. Whether Calipari says whatever they are, it doesn't matter. Let's move on, JJ. Do our famous.
It's time. It's that time of year, Atlanta ATL Prime sports fans. It's time for our pick six. No pro games this weekend just yet. Saw 6 college games off of Monday's spreads. Let's get into it. West Virginia at number 17, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's a 7.5-point favorite. The over-under is 51. It's a rivalry renewed. The backyard brawl hasn't been played in 11 years, and it's a Thursday night version of this bad boy. You have 2 former USC quarterbacks going head-to-head in Slovis at Pittsburgh and JT Daniels at West Virginia. I like Pitt and their O-line to control the game. Pitt covers. Wayne, then Todd, what say you?
I'm taking West Virginia in the points.
And that's 7.5, right?
Right.
7.5.
No way. They ain't covering 7.5. Howdy High keeps it within 7, and they may even win it. You know what? They may even win it. They haven't played each other in a while. There's just no way this game's not going to be close. Next.
So you like West
Virginia. I'm with Wayne. Give me Howdy High. Next.
Howdy High, West Virginia. All right. Next is one of the more anticipated matchups of the weekend. Number 11, Oregon versus number 3, Georgia. UGA's a 17-point favorite. Over-under in that one's a 52. Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Game 1 of 2 in the Chick-fil-A Kickoff Classic. UGA has held Bo Nix in check as a quarterback. 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions versus UGA in 3 years as an Auburn quarterback. Oregon is 0-6 against the spread in its last 6 Week 1 matchups. UGA is 6-0 against the spread in its Week 1 matchups. That's per oddshark.com. We'll go Wayne, TC, then I'll do last on this one.
You already gave yours away, but go ahead, Wayne.
Well, I'm taking Georgia on this one. In fact, I think they might win by 21 points because I've got a feeling Oregon's a bit overrated.
I like the dogs, and I like them just like Wayne said. I don't think they're overrated, but I like Georgia's offense and defensive line. the strength there tells me big. And you know what? It's a home game for Georgia. I know it's game one, but as long as Georgia doesn't turn the football over, and I don't think Stetson Bennett will turn it over, he reminds me a lot of Brian Greasy. And you know what? I like the Dogs big.
And we're all three there. I think I prefaced it. Look, Dan Lanning versus Georgia, old defensive coordinator, new coach at Oregon. Georgia's wide receiver coach used to be at Oregon. Lots of storylines here, but I think the Dogs cover. They're just too much. Let's go to our third game of the weekend, which is another highly anticipated, one of the second of three ranked versus ranked matchups. Number 23, Cincinnati, first team at the group of five to get to the college football playoff, travels to Fayetteville, Arkansas to take on number 19, Arkansas. Arkansas 6-point favorites. The over-under in that one's 51 and a hook. Wayne, TC, myself, go ahead.
I'm taking Cincinnati in this one, and I don't even think they need the points. I think Cincinnati's going to win that one.
Oh, wow.
Oh, you know what? The points is much. I think Arkansas will win the game. You know what? They should win by more than 6 at home. I've got the Hogs. It's that O-line, D-line, SEC, meat and potatoes beats the AAC. Sorry, Wayne.
Yeah, I'm going KJ Jefferson's a better quarterback than the transfer from, I believe, Eastern Michigan, Ben Bryant at Cincinnati. KJ Jefferson has a big game. Sam Pittman, turn on that jukebox, baby. The Arkansas Razorbacks start off 1-0. In my opinion,
Jukebox hero. Oh, I'm sorry. That's a song from another time.
the most anticipated non-ranked versus ranked matchup of the weekend, in my opinion, number 7 Utah, coming off a Pac-12 championship, a near Rose Bowl victory, travels to the Swamp, playing the Florida Gators. Utah's a 3-point road favorite. Over under in that one's 51. Wayne, TC, myself, let's do it.
51.
Well, I'm taking Florida in this one because it's Florida at home, opening day, opening game, new coach. I think they're going to put it on Utah.
Is it you know what? This game, I'm going against the SEC. Utah has got one heck of an offensive line. The only thing that may get Utah is the heat. That does scare me coming down in that environment. I'll pick the Utes by 4.
You got Utah covering. Look, the elevation difference might be a huge play. You talked about it, TC. Utah played awful on the road early last season, dropping their 3 L's all on the road, 2 of whom were out of the Power 5 in San Diego State and BYU. Give me the Gators and the points.
You know what?
Utah might come out of this with a 1-point victory, folks, but give me the Gators and the points.
I'm going to take the Gators and the points, too. You know, when you change your mind, you end up being screwed. But you know what?
Right?
I'm going with the SEC and the points. I think Utah wins, but I'll take Florida just because of the heat. You just see that when teams aren't used to that.
And especially early in the season. The third and final ranked versus ranked matchup of the opening weekend features a top 5 matchup. The point spread doesn't seem like that. Number 5, Fighting Irish, Notre Dame, breaking in a new coach. At number 2, Ohio State at the Horseshoe. Ohio State is a 17.5-point favorite. The over-under in that one is ginormous at 58 and a hook. Wayne, TC, myself.
Well, I don't know who's giving out these points, but they're nuts on this one. I'm taking Notre Dame in 17.5. Who wouldn't?
JJ, go. I want to hear your opinion on this one before me. I get to go
Ohio
last this
State.
time.
OHIO, big time.
17.5. Come on.
21 plus, easy. Ohio State's too deep. CJ Stroud, Henderson, Njigba, who I think could be an outside Heisman Trophy candidate. Way too much. Plus, remember, I've said this before. Ryan Day is arguably the best coach in college football right now, regular season-wise. Sign me up for Ohio State in a 12-0 season, and they'll 21 plus them this weekend.
Well, I'll tell you what, Freeman's already coached in the game, and, they had that big lead against Baylor and blew it. I like Ohio State. Too many athletes. They'll cover it. I don't know if they'll cover it by much, but they'll cover it by enough. Notre Dame offensively is not going to be able to keep up with Ohio State. And with Jim Knowles, the new Ohio State DC, defensive coordinator, I like the Buckeyes, and I like them big. Oh, I ain't going to do the rest. We all know.
We all know it. We all know it.
Ohio State big.
Guys, final game of the pick six. We mentioned it. We know Wayne's pick. He's taking the Panthers in the points. It's Georgia State traveling to South Carolina, Columbia University, an I-20 battle, you could call it. South Carolina's 12-point favorites. The over-under in that one should be a high scoring, according to the people in the desert. Over-under is 57. Wayne, TC, myself, go ahead. We know.
No,
Wayne, you said Georgia State and the Panthers in the points, right?
In the points.
You in the game, Wayne? I'm sorry.
I think South Carolina will win the game, but I don't think they're going to win by 12. I think they'll probably win by maybe 7-10.
JJ, you're next. I'm going last.
I'm going South Carolina. I think the offensive defensive line, Spencer Rattler, may have a chip on his shoulder this year to come over and play in the SEC. I think they start off hot. Beamer ball's back. I like the Gamecocks, unfortunately. But I'll be rooting for the Panthers hard. But Gamecocks cover.
I agree. I think South Carolina covers. I don't know by how much, but they barely cover. Shane Beamer done a really good job at South Carolina last year. And again, the SEC O-line and D-line just seems to always make a difference in these non-conference games. And I'll go with it. The only SEC winner I didn't pick was Florida. I think Utah is going to win, but it's going to come down to the end. And what was it, 3.5? You know, that'll be the difference. So I'll go with South Carolina. Let's go. Let's pick our final four. I'm going last. You want mine so bad, you'll get it last. Yeah.
Wayne, go ahead, buddy.
Yes, go ahead. Final four and national champion. Then we got to go.
Well, you know, I'm the underdog guy, so I'm picking this as my final four.
Oh my, here we go.
Purdue, South Carolina, Houston, and Washington.
You are already in basketball mode because it'll be a basketball Final Four.
South Carolina.
Are you writing this down? Because
I am. Purdue, South Carolina,
Houston, and Washington.
You need to be drug tested at the end of the show.
Yeah, and I'm taking Purdue as the national champion.
Purdue wins it all.
You know what? You got to be doing this for show. Either that or we are getting you to go to the bathroom in a cup soon.
All right. Well, after that hot take, I'm going to go with chalk. Bama, Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson. I'll say Bama and Georgia in the national championship yet. And God bless it, I'm going to pick Bama.
Whoa. We need to drug test you too. You know what? Wow. You actually... It's the first time ever on this show. Each of you go pee in a cup when this is over. All right, me. JJ's been waiting to this because I've been needling him since the cows have come home.
You're going to go chalk.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'll say it again.
Let's go.
Not. All right. Georgia will get to the Final Four. They'll lose to Alabama in the SEC title game, but Georgia will be undefeated. Alabama will not. I already stated that earlier. Everybody in the West is going to lose a game, but they'll win it. They'll play Georgia. They'll each be in the Final Four. My other Final Four participants.
You have Bama and Georgia in the Final Four.
Yes, but, okay. But Georgia will be undefeated when they play Bama. Bama will have a loss, and Bama will be desperate, and Bama will beat them, just like last year. Now, so they're in the Final Four. I have Ohio State in the other one. Now, that puts me over in the Big 12. And guess who I'm going to pick in my Final Four?
The Baylor Bears.
I'm going Baylor because what? Defense. And you know what? Until Clemson should win the ACC, they should go undefeated. But until they get that offense in gear, if it's like it was a year ago, they're going to continue to lose. So I'll say Baylor. Baylor wins now. Now, my championship game is going to be Ohio State will play Georgia, and they will beat the Dogs. Alabama will play Baylor, and Alabama will beat Baylor. And the Buckeyes in the Big Ten will win the national title. That's what I'm going with. There you go. You want to know what it was?
I like Baylor. I like the Baylor pick, but I don't think I think that's a year or two early. I still think it's going to be in Oklahoma or Oklahoma State. I think Mike Gundy might get him this year. No Lincoln Riley. It will be fun. That about wraps up our show. I got a final thought. Just can't wait for college football this weekend. It has been itching at me to come back. So enjoy the Labor Day weekend and enjoy time with family and friends. That's my final thought.
Mine is, as you know, I'm a Detroit Lions fan, a former season ticket holder like my father. I've been watching HBO Hard Knocks. I've typed on Twitter at Corder Todd. I think the Lions can make the playoffs this year. But after watching that debacle from the backup quarterbacks on Sunday, thank goodness. At this point, I know they're cutting Tim Boyle. I hope they cut David Blau. I hate to say that because I like David Blau. Maybe he can stay on as a third-string quarterback. But they need to go get a quarterback because if something happens to Jared Goff, no playoffs. But if Jared Goff can stay healthy, play action pass, and run the football, I like this Lions team, and I like what Dan Campbell's done, and I know you want to drug test me at the end of the show. Final thought there, Wayne.
Yeah, well, my final thought is if Detroit does get to the playoffs, then there's going to be a racketeering investigation open up against the mob because something's going screwy there.
Hey, you know what? If the Lions, I said this to you in a text, so I'll reveal it now. If the Lions make the playoffs, Detroit will be thrilled. If they win a game, some people are not going to be around on earth. That's going to be it. They're going to pass out and not make it. If they go to the NFC Championship game, that'll be another level, folks, that won't be around. If they win that one, I don't know if I'll be around. But I'll tell you what, if they get to the Super Bowl and win it, that'll be it from Sanford and Son. Honey, Elizabeth, and in my case, Lisa, I've seen it all. That's it. That is it. So,
Wayne,
you know, and Wayne's wearing
Did Todd get your little genie lamp that washed on shore?
Yeah, maybe he did.
Hey, Wayne's got the Lions colors on tonight. That means something. That means something to me right here.
Memphis
Big
colors.
heart. Big
Well,
heart.
folks, that wraps us up. Thanks for listening. This is ATL Prime Sports. For Todd, I'm JJ. That's Wayne. Find us all at ATL Prime Sports, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We'll see
Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.
Give us a thumbs up. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe. We'll see you guys next week. Get you one.
I'm coming to join you, honey.